Ancient strategy, modern sales, one usable line per episode.
Last time, context writes the decision. Today, the silent role of framing, and why the way you set up a conversation determines what the other side hears. I had 2 meetings last week, both with similar prospects, both about the same solution. In the first one, I led with our capabilities. Feature by feature, the prospect listened politely, then asked for a discount before I finished.
And the second?
I opened differently. I described a problem their industry is facing, and how companies like theirs are approaching it. Same solution underneath, but they leaned in, asked questions, never mentioned price. By the end of this episode, you'll know why the same information lands differently depending on how you frame it, and how to set the frame before you speak. I used to think content was everything. Get the right facts in front of the right person, and the logic does the work.
Logic is necessary, but it's not sufficient.
What's missing?
The lens. The same facts, seen through different lenses, lead to different conclusions. A price is high or fair depending on what came before it. A timeline is fast or slow depending on what you compared it to. The content didn't change, the frame did.
So framing is what I put around the facts.
It's what arrives before the facts. The first thing the listener hears creates the lens for everything after. That's why your first meeting triggered price talk, and the second triggered curiosity. Same content, different frame. Sun Tzu described this principle directly. Ning shi di ren zi ji zhe, li ji yi. He who can make the enemy come of his own accord does so by offering some advantage.
You draw them in, rather than pushing.
In the chapter on weak points and strong, Sun Tzu explains how to control the enemy's perception, bu shan zan zhe, ji ren er bu ji yu ren. The skilled strategist imposes his will on the enemy, and does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. Hold that principle, we'll apply it in a moment.
So the great commander doesn't wait for the opponent to set the terms. He sets them first.
And in sales, whoever sets the frame controls the conversation, not through force, through architecture.
Architecture of what?
Of understanding. The frame you set determines which questions get asked, which comparisons get made, which concerns feel relevant. Set the right frame, and objections dissolve before they form. Set no frame, and the prospect builds their own, usually the wrong one.
So the conversation is decided before the content arrives.
The frame decides what the content means.
Show me how this works in practice.
3 framing moves. Each one changes what the listener hears, without changing the facts.
First move.
The problem frame. Before you present your solution, name the problem they're living with. Not your version of it, theirs. When the prospect hears their own situation described accurately, everything that follows feels relevant. You're not selling, you're translating their reality. Second, the comparison frame. People don't evaluate in absolutes. They evaluate relative to something. Your price feels different next to a competitor. Your timeline feels different next to a past failure. Choose the comparison deliberately. Don't let the prospect grab a random one.
And third,
the identity frame. Connect your offer to who they want to become, not just what they need to fix. Companies that lead in this space are doing X. Now your solution isn't an expense. It's a signal of the kind of organization they want to be. Identity is the strongest frame.
3 frames: problem, comparison, identity. And each one changes how the same facts get interpreted.
Without changing a single fact. That's the power of framing. It's not what you say. It's what you say first.
So how do I use these in a meeting?
Before you present anything, set the frame in your opening. Here's how. Open with the problem frame. Here's what we're seeing across your industry, and where it creates the biggest cost. Now the prospect is listening through a lens of recognized pain. Everything you say after maps to their experience.
When do I use the comparison frame?
When pricing or timing comes up. Don't wait for them to compare you to the cheapest option. Introduce the comparison yourself. Most teams solve this with X. Here's why that approach takes 3 times longer. You've set the benchmark. Now your offer looks different.
And the identity frame?
Use it when you feel resistance softening. The teams we work with that are growing fastest all share one thing: they made this shift early. Now saying yes isn't just solving a problem. It's joining a group they want to belong to.
So I'm not pushing content. I'm shaping the lens before the content arrives.
Frame first, content second. Always. The one line for today.
Let's hear it.
Frame first, then speak.
The architecture of understanding.
Before your next meeting, before you open your deck or start your pitch, ask yourself, what frame am I setting? What lens will they hear this through? If you haven't set one, they'll set their own. And you won't control where the conversation goes.
So framing isn't manipulation, it's responsibility.
If you don't frame, the conversation frames itself. Usually against you. Here's a test. Before your next meeting, write one sentence that describes the problem from their perspective. Not yours. Open with that sentence. Watch how the energy shifts.
You're setting the problem frame from the first breath.
One sentence. That's all it takes to change how everything after gets heard.
What if I'm not sure which frame to use?
Default to the problem frame. Here's the challenge I keep hearing from teams like yours. It works in any situation. It shows empathy, and it creates a natural bridge to your solution. The comparison and identity frames are upgrades. Use them when you have the context.
3 tools. Frame first, then speak. Open with their problem, and choose your comparison before they do. All about what arrives before the facts.
Let's lock them in.
My takeaway: the same content produces different results depending on the frame. Framing isn't about what you say, it's about what you say first. Problem frame creates relevance. Comparison frame shapes perception. Identity frame moves emotion.
Keep going.
Sun Tzu said the skilled commander imposes his will, not through force but through position. In sales, framing is that position. Set the lens before the content. Shape the conversation before the first slide. One principle: frame first, then speak.
Drill zone. Come back here before your next presentation or pitch. You're about to walk into a meeting. You have great content, strong solution, but you haven't thought about the frame. What do you tell yourself?
Frame first, then speak.
Again, like the commander who shapes the battlefield before the first move.
Frame first, then speak.
Good. Now the opening test.
Here's the challenge I keep hearing from teams like yours.
And the comparison move.
Choose my benchmark before they choose theirs.
The sequence. Meeting approaching. First, frame first, then speak. Second, open with their problem in one sentence. Third, set the comparison before they do. Don't let the conversation frame itself. You set the lens.
Problem, comparison, identity.
This week's test. Pick one meeting, write your opening sentence, the problem frame, before you walk in. Just one sentence that describes their challenge from their perspective. Open with it. Watch what happens.
And if the energy shifts?
Then you'll feel the difference between presenting content and framing a conversation. One informs, the other transforms.
Which frame should I try first?
Whichever matches your week. A. Frame first, then speak. B. Here's the challenge I keep hearing from teams like yours. Or C. Choose your comparison before they do. Drop your pick in the comments. I read every one.
What's next?
What Sun Tzu knew about positioning, and why the strongest position is one where you're almost impossible to beat before the contest begins. Same calm tone, one usable line.
Ancient strategy, modern sales, one usable line per episode.